All right, so this is my book report over the book Honest to God by Bill Hybels. It was a really good book. One of my uh, favorites probably now. Uh, the main thesis is becoming an authentic Christian, like it says. And what's up, Deej? Okay. All right. Anyway, so it's about becoming an authentic Christian, and he just lists different principles and topics that he goes over uh, in pursuit of submitting your entire life to Christ. And probably my favorite one was about, well, first of all, the two that struck me the most were, one was his increase in spirituality through journaling, and how that revolutionized his prayer. That he started praying through what he would write down his prayers in his journal, and so that's something I've done kind of naturally recently, but I always kind of thought it was not like a proper substitute for verbal prayer. However, I have in very recent time increased my both writing out prayers and verbal prayers. Anyway, but he lists specifically some things that he addresses with God and specific questions that he asks. Like first, he asks, how can my relationship with you be developed? And then he'll pause and listen for what God has to say. And then after that, after he feels like he's waited a significant amount of time, or he's received an answer, he'll ask, his secondary, tertiary, and quaternary questions. And so some of those things are like, what can be improved about my character, Lord? How can I be improved in my personal relationships? And then how can I be improved in, how can my ministry improve? And then he also, goes on to categories of prayer that he has, whereas he's intercessing. And then, he begins with prayer of adoration towards God. And so, these things were kind of all things that I was semi-familiar with, but the fact that Bill Hybels just puts it all together in a kind of a structured format helps me, because I tend to think analytically, like we've talked about in class. And so some of these things are really reaffirming, and have them in concise sentences and statements to go off of is very helpful in guiding me becoming disciplined in my walk with the Lord and my relationship with Him. So another thing that he has a chapter devoted to is biblical manhood. And so the main crisis and that he is discussing is what the world thinks, and the two types of men in the world, and then the biblical man. And so the two types of men in the world that he discusses are the macho men, bravado, who cover up insecurity through like womanizing and having like large vehicles and being larger than life, so to speak. And then there's men who are more submissive and can even be frustrating to wives and women because of their submissiveness. And so I can see parts of myself in both categories, but then the biblical man is not just like a combination of the two, but it's a transformation of both of those positions into becoming truly what they're both trying to cover up. And so that's that's like transforming their insecurities into securities in Christ through their identity in Christ, and then eventually becoming a man who can be both straightforward and commanding of respect, but also very sensitive and submissive and responding to people's needs. And so that's what I learned in Bill Hybels' Honest to God, Becoming an Authentic Christian book. And so I was very thoroughly pleased with everything I read. And so it was a great book, and I hope to add it to my library someday. So thank you.